I'm Michael Mastro. I'm a photographer, graphic designer, and a custom car designer.
So tell me how you got into photography again.
When I was in high school, I had to do a senior science project. And I had seen some infrared photography in magazines. It was a pretty new thing. And I got a little fascinated by it, so I just selected that as my senior science project. And then I just kept up with photography after that, but my whole focus was shooting rock and roll bands.
And your favorite band that you've shot?
Oh, that came years later. It would have been Fleetwood Mac and Queen in Atlanta in probably 75, 76, that era. Both shows were just so spectacular, and there was just so much to shoot, just so much.
So what got you to Mobile, Alabama?
Well, after managing for about 5 years, I started tapering that off and went back into graphics, and I had a business in Atlanta. And one day a friend called, and actually a great photographer friend of mine, Rick Newby, and Rick had shot a couple of bands for me when I was managing. And he had moved to Mobile to do fashion photography, and they were the first fashion studio shot digitally. And back on 6 megapixel EOS-1 Canons. And so Rick called me, and I came down here and I helped out with production work for them. And then a year to the day later, I got laid off, and 3 days later got married. And because my wife had a great job, we wound up staying in Mobile.
How did you get into architectural photography?
Well, I've always been fascinated with and appreciative of architecture. I mean, from the engineering involved to the design, and especially old architecture. You know, the way buildings used to be designed with, you know, architectural details around the lintels and the windows and windows and all that kind of thing. And I did some photography for the church that we go to, and it got the attention of the Archbishop's office, and Archbishop Lipscomb commissioned me to do a book on the cathedral here in Mobile. It's a 150-year-old cathedral. They had just done a 4-year renovation on it, and I spent 2 years on the book. I did all the photography, designed the book, did the digital art, typography. I did everything but write it. That sparked an interest in shooting architecture even more. So I did some photography for the city. I did shot for the local magazine here, that kind of thing.
So tell me about some comments that you got about the details of those downtown Alliance pictures that people saw things, or you saw things that they never saw.
Well, the first thing that happened is after the cathedral book came out, I was approached by the Downtown Alliance, and they asked me to take on a project. They have a brochure called the Downtown Mobile Historic Walking Tour, and it's 52 buildings, historic buildings in downtown Mobile. So what they asked me to do was capture details of those buildings for an exhibit. So that's what I did. And I went out and I shot several of the buildings, and I went with Thomas Harrison and met with Thomas Harrison, the arts critic at the time, the Mobile Press Register. And I brought in a handful of prints, and Thomas and I sat down and we went through them, and he didn't really say a lot. And when I got home, I checked my phone, and there was a message from Thomas. And he said, "Michael," he said, "I'll never walk through downtown Mobile and look at it the same way again." He said, "Your photographs opened up my eyes." And it was like, dang, that's pretty cool.
What would you say was your favorite building to photograph in the downtown tour, the details one?
The Van Antwerp building. It was the first skyscraper built in Mobile. It's at the time, I believe it was the tallest building on the Gulf Coast, and it's just got some great details in it.
Locally, where do some of your photos hang on the walls?
Oh, the Exchange. Yeah, it's an office community on Government Street. There's a bunch of images hanging in there. They've got some great 3x4 foot images, that kind of thing.
Off the top of your head, what are some of those images?
Let's see, there's one called Floats in a Pool. I'd gone to shoot, I was shooting a condominium in Gulf Shores, and I had to walk out on the balcony, and as I looked over the balcony, there was a swimming pool with these day glow floats floating around. And I turned around and I said, I'll be right back. So I went down and got a shot of that. And then I think it was the same day, it was in another condo, and I looked off the balcony and there was a boardwalk going out to the ocean. I said, I'll be right back. And I went down and got a shot of that. Both of those are hanging in the exchange. And then let's see, there's some rock and roll images, Patti Smith, Billy Joel, about a dozen of them hanging down here.